You're listening to A Sculpted Life podcast, brought to you by Paltai International. Interviews with creatives around the globe. Our sculpting material, Paltai Premium, is the all-weather sculpting material. Add water, knead like dough, sculpt it. Make art for your garden. No firing, no molds, no kidding.
Today I'm talking with Bill Doran from Punished Props, and they are a prop and costume making husband and wife team from Seattle, and since 2009 they've been building props and costumes with each other and their friends, and their passion for the creative process has pushed them to create bigger and more elaborate pieces, and in 2012 they turned Punished Props into a full-time career. In 2015, Bill's wife Brittany joined the team, and the two of them have dedicated themselves to providing their fans with the best video tutorials and guidebooks that they can muster. So they now have, I just looked, and you have over 222,000 YouTube subscribers.
Oh my goodness.
Which is
that
insane.
Can't be right.
That's right. That's quite insane. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But
sure.
What they do is they want to teach the next generation of prop and costume makers with the skills necessary to fully explore their passion and enthusiasm for the things they love. And they create honest instructional content that's designed to push themselves and others to be better makers. And their goal is not only to teach techniques, but also to be a positive role model and leader in a quickly growing community of makers, crafters, and creators. I don't think you could have done that better yourself, because
I spent months writing all of that.
I bet you did. Hey, folks, that was exactly right from their website, with just a few modifications to take away the I and make it to they.
Yes.
So,
I'd like to point out, too, that we spent a lot of time, especially since Brittany joined the team a couple of years ago, like figuring out what it is we're all about as a company and as people. Yeah. So the About Me section on our website, I feel like really kind of encapsulates what it is that we're really about. We don't just make stuff. We want to make more makers. We want to, encourage other people to take the things that they love and build them.
Excellent.
I feel like we've done that.
Well, absolutely. And you can tell with the amount of love that you get. And I was looking earlier and realized that your fan base calls themselves the Prop Tarts, which I found was quite interesting.
They named themselves that.
Yeah. So tell me how did that begin, and how long had you? So we'll kind of jump back and forth, because I don't like kind of do linear questioning. But so how did you start growing that fan base, and how come they came up with this name?
So we've done the YouTube videos for a long time, but we started doing more streaming, so live streaming on Twitch. And we did that for a while, just our live podcast that we do every week. But we started doing videos where we're live in the shop building stuff and people can follow along. And especially over on Twitch, it's very, very community focused. And that's where our core community kind of started to coagulate. And we made it a thing kind of organically where they would vote on the names for our tools. So we have a bandsaw, a big green bandsaw called Jabba the Cut. We have the degassing chamber is called Mary Poppins, Pops Bubbles. It was a thing to name stuff. Yeah. Live on the stream. So people would recommend names, we'd make a list, and everyone would vote. Very democratic. But then the same thing happened when the fans in the chat were like, well, we need a name for ourselves. So we did the same thing, and they voted, and Prop Tarts is what stuck. Someone else in the community made the logo, which looks like a Pop Tart pastry, but it's made out of EVA foam, and the pink goo is Mold Max 30, the pink silicone.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. That's so cool. No, that's all right. Just quietly dying in the background there. That's okay. Yeah.
So the great thing with the Prop Tarts is that they made their own Facebook group. They're completely self-aware. We pay attention. We keep an eye on it, but they've just completely embraced the values that we sort of the example that we provide, and then they ran with it. So we're very hands off with them. They're doing their own thing, and we think it's pretty awesome.
And tell me how you think that happens. How do people start? I mean, we've noticed we have several different groups for Paltaya because we have, fans in all different areas of the world, and we've seen that kind of self-modulating stuff coming through where people are answering other people's questions before we can even get to them, which is great. How does that grow to be something like, that you're hardly ever in there and people are just talking amongst themselves? Do you think it's just the amount of people, or do you think it's the conversations those people are having?
A long time ago in my YouTube videos, I used to do more videos that were more community driven, but they tended to be a little preachy, a little bit of me trying to tell everyone, hey, let's all be cool to one another and let's help out. And after a while, I realized that it would be more effective to simply lead by example and be the kind of person and portray the kind of values that I want to see out of the world. And when other people would respond in a similar fashion to promote that behavior, right? To say, hey, look at so-and-so is helping out in the chat, like calling out when people are being really helpful and friendly. And that made other people want to do that. And it kind of started, really it just attracted more people like that, really. More people who want to help, more people who want to share what they know. Which was great because we kind of reached a critical mass where I can't get back to everyone anymore. So now we encourage people. The Prop Tart Facebook has over 4,000 people in it. We encourage people, if you have a really specific question about a costume or something you're working on, go post it over there. People will be more than willing to help you. That's excited to help you even. Yeah. And then I don't have to spend all day replying to comments. I just can't do that anymore. Yeah,
because you must get so many of them. But I mean, what's really interesting is I guess it's great for them as well because they used to be there, right? So they had to start somewhere. So new people coming in, it's always fun to help people and give them a kind of lending hand up, which I quite like.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to come up with an example here. We've got I'm in the Prop Tart Facebook group right now. Let's see. People are sharing their progress photos. This guy built a set of armor. My buddy Dan actually posted a thing in there. He was working on some electronics and had some questions. So he posted it in there. And it's great, too, because Dan is a close buddy of mine and he could call me if he wanted to. But instead, he went to the hive mind and saved me having to do all the legwork for him, which is awesome. So he posted a question about doing electronics, and I can actually see that my brother is in the chat or in the group. So he got back to him, which is great because I would have just called my brother. He's the one that knows electronics.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to see like people I know going to this wonderful group for help and getting an amazing response and solving the building problems that they have. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's just a testament to you and Brittany and that community that you've created. And now it's just kind of taken on a life of its own, which is brilliant and exactly what you want, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I found the post here. He had questions about Arduino. And one of our pals in the group, there's another local guy named Chad, got back to him. Super helpful. It's awesome.
Oh,
thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad.
Besides, Chad knows more about that specific thing than I do.
And so take me back to what you were doing before all of this. So pre-2009.
So funny enough, too, we do a lot of video publishing now. Video production, but a huge part of that is publishing and promoting our videos on the internet. So, for example, I just painted a Blade Runner squirt gun to look like a real prop.
Yeah.
And that video just went up today. So yesterday or the day before, I spent time making a thumbnail and writing the description and coming up with links and stuff. And then today I set the whole thing live and I'm answering comments. Like that's my job is video publishing. And when my job before this was at Microsoft working for the Xbox Live and Zune video marketplace. And I did a lot of video publishing there. Like it's almost the exact job.
You're like, I'm just doing it myself now.
I am. And it's videos that I made, which makes it a lot more fun than uploading episodes of The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Exactly. And I heard something interesting the other day as well, which kind of fits in nicely to this podcast. I don't know if you've heard of James Altucher, but he is probably one of my favorite podcasters out there. And he said that someone said there is 2 addictive things in life: heroin and a regular paycheck. Which I really liked, because it's so true. When you're doing it for yourself, it's just so much more rewarding than doing it for that regular paycheck. But the regular paycheck is very alluring, and it's very easy for anyone to just go, you know what, I thought having my own business would be easy, but actually it's 10 times harder, and I'm working every hour God sends.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting. My day job, like I reached a point where I knew that if I wanted to progress in the company, in the larger company, I would have to get certified for different more technical skills. And I could have done that. Like there was a point where I was thinking I could totally do that. I could be a career Microsoft guy. Yeah. I would just have to go back to school and take some classes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was right around the same time that I was starting to do the prop and costume making thing. Now, if I'd got a big raise at my day job, or if I had been made a what they call it, a full-time employee, like I maybe wouldn't have taken the leap. You know what I mean? Like getting a raise at Microsoft probably would have been the worst possible thing ever, because then I wouldn't have taken. I'm like, I can't do that. I make so much money here. And the truth is, I had a good job there. It wasn't amazing. If it was amazing, then I wouldn't have quit.
So
hooray for my mediocre job that I quit.
Yeah. So how did you go from doing that to, so obviously you kind of started getting into the, I read a little bit about how you got into the costumes, and you started going to, these events and started wearing them, and then you started making things, and then people started asking you to make things for them. Yeah. Did it just snowball from there, and you simply thought, yes, well, I either stay here or I'm actually getting so much work that I could actually do this myself?
Yeah.
Step away.
When I quit, I had maybe 6 months worth of commissions lined up, and I was like, well, at least I'll be busy for 6 months.
And then who knows?
Yeah. And then I had more. This was back in 2012. There was a very different landscape. There were very few people doing that kind of work. So it was less competitive, and I was one of the more well-known people doing it. So I had no shortage of work. Yeah. Like at one point, I think 2014 was the last time I took commissions, and I opened up commissions for a week, and I had 2 years worth of work lined up within that week.
Wow.
And that was back in 2014, and I have not opened my commission since then.
Wow. Okay. So you don't do any commissions anymore, I guess. No.
No, we do. Well, so since our goals have shifted since then to do tutorial and instructional content, we'll do sponsored videos to teach people how to make props and costumes from a video game. So we did that with Bethesda. One of our very favorite video games is Skyrim. Mm-hmm. And they approached us about doing this video series where we would teach ours and their fans how to make armor from Skyrim. And I was like, so long as we can make instructional content, as long as we can teach people, we're in. The actual product, the costume that we made was secondary. That wasn't the product. The product was the videos. Mm-hmm. They still got the costume because I honestly don't have room for more costumes around here. But yeah, that's our focus now. So we will do, it's not really commission work, it's more sponsored work, but we will take the odd job here and there from companies that want to empower their fans to make their own content or costumes from the game, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of there's a lot of value to be had from empowering the fans of your video game to dress up as someone from your game and then go to PAX or Gamescom or something.
Absolutely. It's free advertising.
Yeah, I know, right?
And let's go back to when you said that when you started out, there was a few prop makers, but there wasn't very much competition in that space. And now, looking at the landscape of prop making and costume design, how do you guys find your voice in that space now? How do you make it unique?
We do. I mean, the main thing is making videos on the internet. the internet is turning into videos. Like most video or most internet now, not most, but a lot of the internet now is being consumed through videos. You see platforms like Facebook and Instagram pushing the video stuff.
Yeah.
So the people who are making videos are going to get a lot more attention. You know, the challenging thing is making videos is a lot of hard work.
Yes, it is.
So if you're willing to put in that legwork, then you can instantly get a leg up over everyone else. In our community, we only see a handful of people making videos about prop and costume making, and an even smaller amount of people making tutorials on a regular basis about prop and costume making. Just because every time you build something, if you're like, well, if I have to film and edit it, then it's going to take 3 or 4 times longer than if I just built it.
True.
And we're just, I was going to say, we're just crazy enough to
do it.
Put it in trap. Yeah.
It's almost like you need to clone yourself about 1 million times to get everything done that you want to get done.
That is a real feeling.
Yeah. And you've mentioned on your website about your maker allies. How did you start to attract the attention of other prop makers, and how did they kind of come into your space and want to help you as well?
We do a lot of traveling. We get out there. The first big one. So we're in Seattle, and PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo, and Sakura Con and Emerald City Comic Con are local cons, and they're great. And we would go to those regularly. But then we kept hearing so much about Dragon Con in Atlanta. So in 2011, it's usually the same weekend as PAX, so we never went. But on one fateful weekend, it was on a different weekend in 2011. So we went to Dragon Con. My wife and I guess we both still had our real jobs. Made some costumes, flew out to Atlanta, and met the people, the scene in Atlanta, and the scene of the makers that go to Dragon Con is astonishing.
Wow.
So we went there. We met a ton of amazing, talented people like Harrison Cricks, a bunch of other people. And then we went to BlizzCon, and I ended up at London Super Comic Con one year. I ended up in the Philippines. We were in New Zealand this last year. Yes. Like, we just travel so much and get FaceTime, like real human FaceTime with other makers, other people who are into it. And made friends with people so that we can collaborate with them. So we have our buddy Andrew Cook in New Zealand. We did a collaboration with him, and we have our friends in the UK. We've done some video stuff with them, and we have friends in Atlanta, and we just collaborate on stuff whenever we can. And the great thing is that the scene is crowded and noisy, but not so much that we can't all find our own place inside of it.
Yeah.
So I mentioned my buddy Harrison Cricks. He does high-end replica prop and costume making. He does lots of trophy stuff. And we joke because we're buddies about being competitors, but we really aren't, because I don't make production pieces. He does. I make content.
Yeah.
So there's room for both of us inside of the community, more than enough room for both of us inside the community, which is awesome.
Yeah, and everyone has a different, like, no one does something like you will do it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's everyone always says that about everything. They're like, oh, but there's so much competition. I'm like, well, look at the amount of restaurants out there. You've got your high-end restaurant right down to your McDonald's, right? So it's like you can choose to go to whoever you want. It just depends on what kind of experience you want to have. And
we do another good example is our friend Svetlana and Benny. They run Kamui Cosplay. They're over in Germany. They are probably the closest analog to what me and Brittany do. They do books and tutorials and videos, but a lot of their focus is on other materials. So they're big into Warbler. So they've really become like the face for making costumes out of Warbler. In fact, I have a couple of her books right here, and they're awesome.
There you go.
While we've been more focused on like EVA foam, and recently been doing more stuff with 3D printing. So even inside of that, the prop and costume tutorial category, there's room for more specific categories. In fact, we're all buddies. We all sell one another's books on our stores.
That's fantastic.
Which is yeah, it is fantastic. You're right.
Yeah. And what you were saying earlier about, that face-to-face time with people, I think nowadays it's very much, even when you're looking at a brand now, it's very much, well, who's behind the brand and what do they stand for and what is their message and how are they delivering that message and how are they going to help me? So I think that's very valuable to actually go and meet these people face-to-face, because people forget emails and they forget things like that, but actually meeting people, if you make an impression, they'll not forget you.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So you're doing the right thing there, obviously, and obviously it's working. When did you first know that you were even good at doing this stuff? Like, how were you young when you first realized you were creative, or did that not come till later?
I've always been creative. My mom she's retired now, but she's an art teacher, so she's very excited. In fact, when I quit my job to make stuff for a living, she was more than excited.
Really?
Cool. Yeah. But then my dad is very handy as well. We would build radio controlled cars. We rebuilt a car. We did a lot of like housework, maintaining and fixing and upgrading the house. So I've always been handy with power tools and all that stuff from both my parents anyway. Yeah. And then getting like I replaced the clutch on my Saab in a apartment parking lot by myself, which is stupid, but I could do that because that's the sort of stuff we did with our dad growing up. Yeah. Then I went to school for creative stuff, went to school for computer artwork, 3D modeling and animation. That's where I met my wife. And then after school, after a handful of different jobs, ended up working a very non-creative job, publishing video at Microsoft, and on the side doing this creative thing, building props and costumes, just because it was the most fun ever, and it was an excuse to spend money on tools. I love buying tools. Yeah. So, and it just, that was the thing that finally got me. Like, I knew I was into it because I quit playing video games. Like, I would, instead of playing World of Warcraft, I would be in my garage building space guns from those video games. That's when I knew, like, this is the thing. This is the only thing I want to do with my time right now. Yeah. And then I just got excited about learning new techniques and buying new tools and then learning how to use those tools really well. And then started sharing it on the internet and getting tons of awesome feedback. So, and then, yeah, like you said before, it just snowballs after that. Yeah. Snowballs and gets crazy and crazy. And now I'm looking at moving into a bigger shop and buying more crazy power tools and
just going bigger and bigger. And do you get ideas? I mean, I look at the amount of content that you pump out there, and it's a lot. Do you find that you are you ever stuck for anything to do, or do you always have something on the back burners, or do you have your Prop Tarts tell you what they want to see?
We do. So here's something that's important for us. One of the values that we really, really hold dear is that we build things that we are excited about, right? If there's a thing that I'm super, super stoked about, that's the thing that I build. And people will say, oh, well, will you build the thing that from my favorite video game? And if I like that video game too, then sure. But if it's not something I'm into, I'm not going to build it because that's not really genuine to why I do this.
Yeah, it's not authentic or it's not full of passion. It's just kind of I'm doing this for someone else. Yeah.
Right. A good example is in recent memory, people were super stoked about Pokemon, right? There was a Pokemon game. I've never played Pokemon before. Yeah. So for me to go make a video about Pokemon stuff just because it's super popular right now would probably come across as a little disingenuous. And to me, that's not honest content. So on the other hand, we just watched the new Blade Runner movie, and there's a new gun from the new Blade Runner movie.
I still have to see it.
It's really cool. So and I was just Adam Savage got to play with them, so I was just combing through a video he did, taking screenshots of it, and I'm like that obsession, that enthusiastic fan obsession with a movie or a video game, like that's the thing that inspires me to make stuff, and I want that to come through in my content. And as far as the list of those things, it is It is a big list. I will never finish this list.
We'll just keep
I'm
going.
never stuck for content.
It'll keep growing like your community, right? It's just going to keep turning into this bigger monster. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
And
let me see. I have a video ideas thing here that's just like, I will never finish
crazy.
this list.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So always going to be able to have content, because sometimes you wonder about, some channels, because you think, are they just stretching it now? Because, but with your channel, everything's always so interesting. So it's like, and you're so passionate about it. So that totally comes across.
Oh, yeah. And there's new video games coming out, new movies. We've been playing Destiny 2. Like, I'd already made a gun from Destiny 2. I made one last week. And there's like 10 more I want to make.
Have you heard of the game Scythe?
Scythe? No, I haven't.
Oh, you have to check that out. It's Jamie Stegmaier's. Have you ever heard of any of his games, Jamie Stegmaier?
I'm not sure.
Well, you should check him out. I think you'd really love some of his stuff, especially Scythe.
Is this a board game?
Yes, it's a European-style board game. But yeah, check it out. I'll send you the link because it's really cool. And do you believe that, so you were saying, that obviously you were creative and you've always felt like you've been creative, and because of your dad and things like that. Do you believe, I always ask this question to everyone, I think I'll probably know the answer from what you are saying. Okay. But do you believe everyone has a creative ability, or that it can be taught to someone, or do you think they just have to always have been creative?
I think people need to find the thing that inspires the creativity in them. You know what I mean? Because I'll hear people say like, oh, I can't do that, I'm not creative. And my response to that is, well, you just haven't found the right muse. You haven't found the right thing that for me, it's like video games like Mass Effect and Skyrim and Destiny. They're the games that I'm like, if I don't build something from one of those games, then I can't sleep at night. Like I can't go on unless I take something from that universe and make it real. Yeah. So for most people, they need to find that thing that inspires them, that thing where they're like, if I don't make something from this, then I will feel incomplete. And I think there's got to be something like that for everyone that moves them to make something. And then once you take that first step and you build something from scratch with your own hands, then you're like, oh man, that was fun. I can make anything now. Like it awakens something inside of someone. They realize that they can manipulate the world around them. That's exactly the sort of thing that we try and inspire people to do. Take that first step.
Yeah.
Once you learn that you can mold the world around you, then all bets are off. You can make anything.
Absolutely. I was talking to someone on an earlier podcast who's a costume designer at Weta. And he just started doing his own kind of thing. And then, he got a job at Weta, and then now he's in the costume department doing all of this stuff. And he actually was the first one who introduced me to Warbler. I'd never heard of that before. So it's been like a lesson for me on all these, because I'm a poet and a writer. So I'm not very creative with my hands, but actually because of talking about sculpting and because of having now Paltai Premium, I can do something that I didn't ever think I could do before. So it's very exciting to me to think that I could be creative too. And it's just it's just a different medium. It's just a different way of expressing it. So I could express one of my, I saw something the other day, a beautiful sculpture that just made me feel so emotional. And then it brought on an idea for a poem. And then, so like you're saying, you find that kind of thing that and it needs to kind of come through you in whatever way it's going to come through you, which I really, really like that you said that, because I do believe that everyone has that creative ability, but I like the way that you framed that, and that they have to find something that is going to be their true passion and their true voice, I guess, and how that comes out. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the other, and it goes both ways too. Like we went and saw Blade Runner last night, the new one, and I was like, oh crap, I want to watch another movie like that, another cyberpunk type movie. Yeah. When we got home, we immediately watched the new Judge Dredd movie, which is awesome. I love that movie. And we started talking about world building, just the whole concept of writing a story and writing characters and writing a world. using the props and the costumes and the sets to do your world building for you. And I was like, wow, we should write a story. Like,
to do it.
Yeah. It's writing it. I don't have to buy silicone. I can just put words on paper. That's way cheaper.
Yeah, exactly.
But that goes the other way. The real physical things we build can inspire us to write worlds, and that's exciting to me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Brittany there. So she joined your team in 2015. So what was she doing before, and how come she got into this?
She did a handful of jobs in the video game industry. We worked together at Microsoft, but she quit to give that a go. And it was cool. She got to work on some really cool video games like Destiny. But after a while, she just didn't see where she wanted to go in that career. And I was like, we could find plenty for you to do here.
I'm kind of maxed out over here. Yeah. You can help me.
But it was definitely her choice she's like, all right, well, we'll give it a go. We'll give it a try. And that was a couple of years ago. And now I couldn't imagine accomplishing anything without her around.
So she makes stuff as well. Like, she's obviously
yeah.
And did you teach her, or did she just kind of like watch you, or just do it herself and she was just out the box great at it?
Well, she again, we went to school together for art. She's always been super talented.
Yeah.
And when I got into costume making, so did she. So we kind of learned a lot of those techniques together. A lot of that stuff I've just done a lot more of because I've spent a handful more years than her doing it all day, every day. But like right now, she's making a whole bunch of really crazy, awesome stuff out of foam. All just doing her thing over there. But we complement each other really well. So we'll discuss a strategy for building a specific thing. So I might be painting a Blade Runner gun, and she might be making a robot out of foam. And let's say what's the word? We consult on each other's projects, which is awesome. And then do you
ever disagree?
Oh yeah.
Things, yeah.
I mean, no, never.
No, never. What? So, because it must be, I mean, I know I work right alongside my husband, and sometimes, the discussions can become quite heated about, not just about business, but about creativity as well, and ideas that you have. Do you find it challenging working in such close proximity to your wife?
No, we do all right. We each have our own part of the workshop. My office is downstairs. Awesome. Her office is upstairs. And it's good to have that have your own space anyway. Yeah.
But it's also good to bounce. I mean, yes. Because you're in that same space, bouncing the ideas off each other. But do you ever find that you're like just always talking about work and you're never talking about anything else?
That is a perfect description of our life. Yeah. It's hard to turn it off. I mean, we work out of our house. We're in our basement. Yeah. There's a very little separation between work life and home life.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we love our work though, so it's I'm not complaining.
So it's not, and that's exactly the same with me. And like you said earlier, if it's something you're so passionate about, you can't not talk about it sometimes because you're just like, well, this is impacting everything that we're doing, so we kind of always end up talking about it. But yeah, that's quite interesting. I like that there's other people out there that they're like me. Yep. I sometimes think, am I the only one? Are we the only ones? No, other people do this too. And so you've talked a little bit about what inspires you. Is there anything, films and obviously, video games and things like that. What else inspires you? Like, does travel when you're away and seeing different things, does that inspire you as well in your work? Yeah.
I mean, one of the almost downsides of living in America is that we don't, especially on the West Coast, nothing here is old. Like you go to Europe, and I was staying with some friends of mine in Europe, and they're like, "Oh, our house is 300 years old." And I was like, "That is older than my country. That's older than America."
Yeah.
Like there's just layers of culture there, and there's castles. You can't walk like a mile in Europe without just stumbling on a castle. There's just castles everywhere.
Yep, there are.
So getting to go places that have like a long, deep culture like that is super inspiring. Yeah. I like castles. We don't have any here.
Well, you would love Scotland then, because it's had plenty castles.
A friend of mine was just in Scotland on doing a whiskey tour, and I was like,
wow.
Next time invite me, I will meet you there.
Yes, let's do it. No, it's actually very inspiring. The buildings, and I think from, because I lived away for so long in a country that was so new. I mean, there's a pub in Edinburgh that was around, there was some semblance of a pub there 200 odd years before Australia was even found.
Jeez.
And you just think, wow. Like, wow. And people just don't, when you're away and you tell people that, it just kind of blows their mind. They're like, that can't be right. And it's like, yeah, it is. And there's like cities on top of cities. You've got the old town on top of the other old town. And it's crazy. It's crazy. So you would probably really love Edinburgh. It's a beautiful city. And then you go into the main street and you look up and lo and behold, there's a castle.
Oh, geez.
Like right in the middle of the city, it's insane. So yeah, you should pop over here at some point and visit.
Oh yeah, I'm looking up Seattle. When was Seattle founded? 1851. Like what?
It's so new.
No castles.
Yeah, no castles, but lots of other cool things.
Yeah.
So what mediums? I know on your website you've got a list of different, Bill's tools and all these other things that you've used, and some sculpting materials and things, but what do you enjoy using the most? And if you had to choose, if I said to you, you can only use these two things, what would they be? Or could you not even choose?
Probably EVA foam and 3D printing.
Okay, cool.
They complement each other very well.
Yep.
And I went to school for 3D modeling, so I'm
so it's gotta
pretty
be
good at it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing a lot more of that lately, and being able to picture something in my head, create it on the computer, and then have the machine print it while I'm asleep is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Them doing large pieces of armor, like things that it doesn't make sense to 3D print them.
Yeah. Big
pieces of armor and stuff. I can do something similar and make large forms quickly with EVA foam.
Yeah, that's cool, because we get asked a lot about we get a lot of cosplayers contacting us and saying, can I make stuff out of Paltai Premium? And I'm like, well, if you want to be really tired lugging it around a Comic-Con, then sure. But it's not exactly wearable.
Right.
But you've played with it. Tell me what you found when you kind of first found it. Were you interested? How did you get interested in it? And how did that all happen? Because I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Yeah, we there was a local con actually just over a year ago in Renton here, right by where we live. Yeah. And there was there's a lady sculpting a dragon. I was like, well, crap, I need to go check that out. And it was Kim there sculpting a giant dragon out of Paltai. Yeah. And I grabbed my camera and just did a quick interview with her to check it out. And then since then became friends. So we got to help with the dragon a little bit. I sculpted a tiny part on the dragon's tail, which was probably sculpted over after I left, but that's fine.
No. Don't say that. She wouldn't have done that.
No. But then, she came over and a bunch of us got together to do a bunch of tinkering with it. The thing that excites me about something like that, like I was saying about world building and stuff, would be set building. Like we want to build stuff for our sets for our costumes that are permanent. Yeah. Doing like outdoor sculpture type things for a set, so I could show up in my costume and have like a really cool looking medieval archway. Like I said, we don't have any castles here, but I'll make my own
one. Build one out of Paltai Premium.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that gets me excited. Ways to augment the costume making that we do and showcase it really well.
Yeah. And what did you like about it? Was there anything that you thought, this is different from other things that I've used?
Well, I actually haven't done a lot of traditional sculpting. Most of it was like hard surface, space guns and stuff. Mm-hmm. I have done a bit of sculpting with oil-based clays for a really terrible mask I made a couple of years ago. But I don't know. I just like actually the concept of doing a foil armature was really, I like that a lot for bulking out things. In fact, we've used that technique for coming up with forms on like a head casting to bulk out a helmet for patterning stuff out of foam. Yeah. And then with for something that's going to be permanent, you can't do that out of the oil-based clays that I have. So using something that cures rock solid and is immune to the elements. I think that's really, really cool.
And we get a lot of, and you might find this as well with what you guys are doing, but we get a lot of people who are, I've been contacted by people working in like ILM and places like that who are all day working on the computer. It's all digital. And they actually want to come home and get their hands on something and actually make something, And before they were saying I didn't have a medium to do this in because, you can't just do something at your kitchen table or something. But with ours, you can, which is really cool. And it's not as highly toxic as all the other stuff that they were using before. So that's really neat because it's actually allowing people to do things that they weren't able to do before. And they've been, turning away. I get some people saying they've been turning away commissions and things because they didn't know what to use. And now they could use our stuff, which is really, really cool. And the concept of the tin foil and doing things in 3D first and then building it into something, has been interesting. A lot of 3D sculptors, so making it on their 3D programs and then actually making it. But I mean, could you make something 3D and then you could just cover it in foil and then put Paltai over it, couldn't you?
Yeah. So something we've thought about is sculpting something in 3D very quickly to get the basic form done. Yeah. And that could be milled out of a polyfoam or 3D printed, or you can even feed a 3D model like that into a program that'll slice it for cutting out in cardboard. So you could make a very cheap, very quick cardboard armature out of a 3D model, cover it in foil, and you've got your base form done. That's already got the right scale. It's already got the right proportions, and then you just sculpt right on top of it. And that's for me the perfect marriage of my background and my skill set doing 3D modeling, and then being able to do more fine detail by hand with your clay and normal tools.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I never thought about the whole 3D, and then that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, and then you can make sure your forms are at least on point in 3D before you commit to mixing up a whole bunch of clay.
Yeah, because we're trying to get people to be very selective about make their foil armature exactly how they want it, so that they're saving on the material, because we don't want them having to buy it. Well, obviously we want them to buy it, but we don't want them to waste it,
Yes.
So we want them to do as well as they can on that form, and then put the thin layer on top, and then sculpt their detail into it. So
Tell you what, too, that's a pretty good product idea, actually. Cardboard. You ever see those? It's like dinosaur bones out of wood that are laser cut.
Yeah.
Something like that, only just in cardboard. You could buy a stack of cardboard, assemble the whole thing, and then you could cover it in foil and then do clay on top of it. If people are looking for a good place to start, that'd be a pretty awesome way to do it.
Yes, because there was a girl who made, she used something else, so it can't be permanent, but she made, she got one of those, it's almost like a really hard paper mache horse head. And she then got the tinfoil and sculpted her shape of a dragon, so put all the stuff on to make the dragon but she had the base there already. So it was just, rather than having to build it all out of tinfoil, she said, I just made it with this head and then put my own detail on it, and then put whatever she wanted on top. But yeah, that's quite interesting, because we've noticed a lot of people coming out with things who, they're just putting that tinfoil on top and making it look how they want it to look. So yeah, that would work really, really well, actually. I like that idea. Now you've got me thinking.
Yeah, go ahead and write that one down.
And so what would you say you might have already done this, but what would be your absolute dream project in the future?
I have a couple, but one of the big ones is, and we definitely need to move into a bigger space for this. I love the movie The Fifth Element, and what I want to build not only all the costumes and props and stuff, but I want to build Korben Dallas's apartment. Ooh. And I want to build it on a trailer so I can bring it places. Whoa. And then live out of it, and like I can go camping with it and just stay in his apartment.
Like a tiny, awesome. Like one of those tiny houses. I've been obsessed with these tiny houses.
I mean, that's what it is, right? It's like this tiny little shoebox apartment with everything built in. Like you could tell when you watch the movie, they were really thoughtful about the design. I mean, some parts of it don't actually work. Like where does his refrigerator go when his shower shows up? But we'll figure all that stuff out. You'd figure it out.
I'm sure you'd figure it out. You'd be very good at that. That sounds like a very awesome project to have on your dream board.
Yeah.
How close are you to that?
I need to find a place to start building it. So not very.
Not very. Soon. And what do you think the future of Punished Props is? Do you think it will change over time, or do you think it will kind of dictate itself what's happening, or do you think you'll just keep doing what you're doing?
That's it would be cocky of me to say that it's not going to change, because it changes monthly. What we do, well, our focus, we're getting more and more focused, but it's still a wandering target. But I think at this point, it really is just a matter of scale. Everything that we do, I think we're just going to scale it up more, start hiring people, move into a bigger place, work on bigger projects. Yeah. I want to push our fans to push themselves to try and do more. So I want to do like vehicle mods, like make a Jurassic Park Jeep. Like the things that we can't do in a basement.
There's limitations.
Yeah. So, and I want to make the commitment to the tools and materials we would need to do those bigger projects so that we can show other people how to do that. So it's really just scaling everything up.
Yeah, I like it. And is there anything you won't do that you wouldn't do, that would just be like, nope, not doing that?
It would be very short-sighted of me to say that there's anything I won't do.
Okay, let's go.
It's funny, if you go watch one of my first videos on YouTube, I was like, hey everybody, I'm Bill, I make props and costumes. I'm gonna start making some videos, but let me be clear here, I'm not making tutorial videos. Like I literally said that in one of my first videos, and now that's all we do. So I have hindsight is 2020. I will not commit to saying that I won't. That there's nothing is off the menu.
Never say never. Yeah, never say never, but not right now.
Yeah.
And if people want to find out more about you, obviously we'll have links in the show notes. But where would be the best place for people to start finding out about you if they did not already know about you?
Absolutely everything is at punishedprops.com. Excellent. So all of our new videos and tutorials get linked up there every few days. In fact, if you go there is a link right at the top of the page. It says new to prop and costume making, start here. Excellent. Click on that. Go to that page. There's everything you need to know to get started, especially if you're new at this. And
you're at Chinbeard on Instagram, right?
On Instagram and Twitter.
Excellent. Yep. So everybody have a look at the amazing work that Bill and Brittany do, because it's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much.
Any other thoughts about anything, like if someone was going to get into what you do, obviously the first place to start would be looking at your website, but is there any other tips that you could give someone, or any insights into ways they could kind of cut corners or start a creative life themselves, that they're just not, maybe they're just sitting back and they're just not sure that they're good enough or that they've got enough time? What advice would you give to someone that was in that space?
The best thing you can do is just to find something to obsess over. And that's where building something from one of your favorite things makes sense. You pick the thing that you can't not do. That obsession will push you to finish it, because you will come to a point where you are rubbing against the limits of your ability, and you will say, oh my gosh, I have no business being a maker. And if it's something that you're not completely dedicated to, you will quit. So find the thing you're obsessed with and see it through to the end, and it will probably be terrible, but that's okay. Yeah. Pick the next thing and make the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and then before you know it, you'll be making just the craziest, coolest things ever. Yeah, that's exactly the advice I give to people about, because I write, and so people say, but how do you finish a book? And I say, well, you just keep writing. Yep. You have to do, it's just an hour a day. I just keep doing an hour a day, and you just chip away, and then suddenly, lo and behold, you have a book there, and it's done. Yes. And you go, oh. You need to be a more careless artist and a more ruthless editor. So when you're putting words on paper, just put words on paper. You'll edit it later. Yeah. Same thing with your first costume. Just start gluing foam together. You'll fix it later. Don't worry. You'll figure out where you need to make changes later on. But don't be afraid to take that first step. Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been a pleasure and really interesting, and I'm sure that people will get a lot from it. So go and check out Bill's and Brittany's stuff, because it's pretty awesome. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you, Bill. Thanks. Coming up on the next episode, we have the Shiflett brothers. So listen in for a little teaser of that episode coming up. Mm-hmm. And they were both absolute geniuses, and I think we're trying to somehow emulate that a little bit. I think the question would be something along those lines, like, why did you not feel that you need to finish out your work so smoothly and tightly and cleanly? Because that's the inspiration I think we draw from Rodin, certainly. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our podcast today. Hey, I have a favour to ask, and it won't take very long. Would you be so kind as to go and leave a review on iTunes? This helps more people find out about our podcast, and as we grow and evolve, we love more listeners like you. Thanks so much. Until the next time. If you want to know more about Paltaya and our amazing product, Paltaya Premium, then visit www.paltaya.com and join our international fan base.